We pride ourselves in being your one-stop shop, your national political news digest from the White House to your house. We are bringing you all the important headlines you need to know and the expert analysis to make it make sense. And with that, I'm going to transition to your national news roundup. It's time for the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. Oh, say it ain't so, Joe. Obama tells allies that Biden's path to winning re-election has greatly diminished. The Washington Post is reporting that former President Barack Obama has told allies in recent days that President Biden's path to victory has greatly diminished, and he thinks the president needs to seriously consider the viability of his candidacy. This, according to multiple sources briefed on his thinking. Obama has spoken with Biden only once since the debate, and he's been clear in his conversations with others that the future of Biden's candidacy is a decision for the president to make. He's emphasized that his concern is protecting Biden and his legacy, and has pushed back against the idea that he alone can influence Biden's decision-making process. Behind the scenes, Obama has been deeply engaged in conversations about the future of Biden's campaign, taking calls from a lot of anxious Democrats, including former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and has shared his views about the president's challenges, according to people with knowledge of those calls. Of course, a spokesperson for Obama declined to comment. So looks like the writing is on the wall. Looks like we're close to the end as Biden world braces for the possibility that the president steps aside. NBC News is reporting that President Biden's political world, they say it's collapsing. Top allies have either publicly or privately called on him to step aside. Major donations have fallen off a cliff. Grassroots fundraising is not keeping up with the demand of a campaign that needs to aggressively scale up 3 months before the presidential election. And members of his own re-election effort have already declared he has no path to victory. Since a disastrous debate in Atlanta upended the trajectory of his campaign 3 weeks ago, Biden has again and again attempted to dig in, bucking efforts to dislodge him from power. But there's now a palpable sense that the ground has shifted underneath them. It's according to 5 people with knowledge of the situation, even among some of the president's most defiant internal backers, who now believe the writing is on the wall. We're close to the end, a person close to Biden said. And so, it's taken a lot to get here. We'll see if we're actually there. These are all from unnamed sources. But while all of that is, all that drama is happening in Biden world and in the Democratic Party, the RNC convention continues. And can you guess whose name they can't seem to keep out of their mouth? Can you guess who? We'll wait. Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris. They can't seem to keep her name out of their mouth. And I wonder why. USA Today is reporting that the primary target of badgering during many of the speeches at the Republican National Convention hasn't been President Biden. It's been his second in command. Biden has been facing a wave of Democratic Party dissenters, as we've talked about. But after news last night that he tested positive for COVID just hours after saying a medical condition is the only thing that could pull him from the ticket, the attention increasingly has focused on Vice President Kamala Harris as his potential replacement. After former President Trump picked U.S. Senator J.D. Vance, Republican of Ohio, as his running mate on Monday, the campaign released a statement saying they aren't able to commit to scheduling a vice presidential debate between Vance and Harris because of the current quandary over the Democratic ticket. Ouch. Harris repeatedly took hits during high-profile Republican speeches in Milwaukee during the convention as speculation over her potential takeover grows and the GOP strategy of winning in November evolves. The Des Moines Register previously reported that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis told the Iowa delegation at a meeting on Wednesday morning that keeping Biden on the Democratic ticket is key to a smooth sailing Republican victory. You don't say. Polling from earlier this month showed that Harris had better odds of beating Trump than Biden, though not by much. And we'll get into that a little bit more a little bit later. But in other news, we know that COVID summer is here, and there's a COVID summer wave that is spreading across the United States. You might know somebody who is recovering from COVID or who may have COVID right now, very much like our current president who is infected with COVID-19. A summer COVID wave has washed over most of the United States, bringing yet another round of gatherings turned into super spreaders, vacations foiled by illness, and reminders that pandemic life has not been fully erased. Not even President Biden was spared. Coronavirus activity in wastewater reached levels considered high or very high in not one, not two, not 5, not 10, but 26 states, according to the most recent data reported by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Other metrics also suggest the virus is rising, including the prevalence of COVID diagnosis in emergency rooms and the rate of tests processed at labs coming back positive, but not to the degree of the winter surge. This is all being reported by the Washington Post. Biden has, of course, entered isolation in his Rehoboth Beach home in Delaware after testing positive with mild symptoms yesterday. And he's really the most high-profile example of the virus's reach. In a July 7th campaign event in Pennsylvania, Biden contrasted himself against Donald Trump by declaring, "I ended the pandemic." He didn't. His administration no longer treats COVID as a public health emergency, instead managing it as a routine respiratory virus to be blunted with an annual vaccination campaign. And so be careful out there, everyone. Have no shame in using a mask if you're in an environment where you feel more comfortable using a mask. We know all the things to do, from hand washing and, social distancing. All these are tools. These are all things that we can do to keep ourselves from getting sick. And then if in fact we, come down with COVID, we know what to do. And especially for the folks who are vaccinated, as is President Biden, it's a different, we know that the virus takes a different course. And so let's all just be smart and be careful out there, and be sure to pass that on. When we come forward, we're digging deeper into the headlines with our friend, Richard Fowler, Fox News liberal contributor. He's also a contributing writer to BET.com and Forbes.com. We're going to be digging into his latest op-ed, The Untold Story of Kamala Harris. He says it's about defining her historic role. Maybe a little bit more. We're going to talk about that and the most recent poll coming out about Harris and all of today's headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
KBLA Talk 1580 is an intervention. When we come forward, includes you. KBLA Talk 1580, turning pain into power.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. Just a few short months ago, California Attorney General Rob Bonta filed 11 felony charges against Diana Taran, an assistant district attorney for Los Angeles County. The charges allege that Taran unlawfully accessed confidential computer data, including police officer files in 2018, and continued to use them after joining the DA's office in 2021. Ironically, Taran, who is now on administrative leave, oversaw the Public Integrity Division, responsible for handling high-profile cases of police misconduct and public corruption, including the charges brought against LA City Council member Kern Price last June. To be sure, the case against Price has raised plenty of eyebrows. Indeed, one noted legal scholar has said publicly, and I quote, "Everything about this prosecution reeks, close quote. Could AG Bonta, with aspirations to become California governor, be punishing Turan for her role in DA George Gascon's police accountability agenda to curry favor with police unions? Could DA Gascon be using the case against Price to showcase his tough stance on crime and political corruption as he vies to retain his seat as DA? Honestly, I have no idea. But here's what I know for sure. Curran Price has been elected and re-elected by thousands of voters, mostly black and brown, who stand to be further disenfranchised if this matter is not handled correctly, which is why it matters to us at KBLA Talk 1580. When the prosecutor is being prosecuted, it seems to me that at the very least, there ought to be a thorough, top to bottom, independent review of all cases under Diana Turan's purview to ensure that none of these cases have been tainted. Justice and fundamental fairness demand no less if public trust truly matters. And I hope it does. For KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Tavis Smiley. We welcome your feedback.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Try Venus for pubic hair and skin, the razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Discover the full regimen of products at GilletteVenus.com.
This is it. Shop the Lowe's closeout event to get up to 70% off select major appliances for your home. Plus, get up to 60% off select patio furniture and accessories for your outdoor spaces. So hurry into your local store today because these deals are too good to last. Shop them now before they're gone because Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows home improvement. Valid through 8/7 while supplies last. Selection varies by location.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
Unmute. Unmute. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and really delighted to welcome our friend, Richard A. Fowler, Fox News liberal contributor. He's also a contributing writer to BET.com and Forbes.com. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing better than President Biden today.
That is true.
COVID-19 and all the calls for him to sort of step back from his reelection campaign after having been on the road quite a bit. I can't imagine how he might be feeling today. And so, look, I'm all right. I'm all right. But I want to first start off by leaning into this op-ed that you wrote and published on Fox.com about Madam Vice President. Talk to us a little bit about the inspiration for writing this op-ed. I haven't seen you write a whole lot about the vice president, but for some reason you were moved about a week ago to pen something, and here it is.
Yeah, as you know, I pick my subjects and topics based on what's happening and what's not happening in the news or what's not happening in the media cycle. And the piece that I wrote about the vice president, I think was interesting because I think of where we are, right? There's been so much people talking about the vice president in this moment, obviously because of what's happening with the president. But I think, too, the reason why they've been talking about the vice president is because I think she struggled. And don't get me wrong, this has nothing to do with her. I think it has everything to do with the White House. But I think she struggled with defining who she is and the accomplishments that she's been able to make. And so in this piece, we sort of really define who she is. There's some very notable people quoted in the piece, including one Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. But it really just talks about what she's been able to accomplish in the background. And it's not often sometimes what folks talk about when you hear the vice president's name mentioned when it comes to policy. When oftentimes when you're having a conversation about the vice president in relation to policy, they talk about her being the border czar, and then they critique how the border's not fixed. It's worth pointing out that we've had a border problem in this country for a number of decades. And the idea, if a president, and there's been multiple presidents, including George W. Bush, Barack Obama, former President Trump, who have all tried to tackle the border. And while some of them have put Band-Aids on it, none of the three individuals that I've named to you have been able to fix the border. Many of them, when they attempted to try to fix the border, they had both majorities in the House and the Senate, and they failed at fixing it. And I'm speaking, like I said, the former three presidents. So the idea that the notion that now a vice president could fix the United States southern border in a moment in time when we've seen more polarization in our politics than ever before, especially around the issue of immigration, to me seemed to be not only unfair, but I think it sort of lacked any level of seriousness. And while that's been happening in the background, what you actually have seen is a vice president who has taken on some issues that most Americans aren't talking about. These issues aren't necessarily on the front page of the New York Times or the Washington Post, but these issues are affecting everyday Americans in a very big way. And the three that I chose to highlight in the piece was, one, maternal health, two, was America's foreign policy to Africa, and three was gun violence. I want to start with maternal health because I think it's an issue that America doesn't talk about a lot, but they should be. We had a big kerfuffle about this on the 5 last week when I was in the chair around the amount of death, amount of women who die at childbirth. And while there's a debate of whether or not this is a true crisis in America, there's some conservatives that don't believe it's a crisis. There's some liberals that believe that the data isn't as good as the data should be. What we all agreed on, even on the 5, was for the fact that America is the world's largest economy, for the fact that America goes around and boasts that we have the best healthcare system, right? There are more women that die giving childbirth here in the United States than any of the countries I would argue are in our grocery basket or down our grocery aisles. So that's the Eurozone countries, that's Japan, that's South Korea, that's Australia. And there's more death that happens here around childbirth than any of those countries that I named. And the vice president has been working with governors to do a couple of things. First, she's extended postpartum care as part of Medicaid for 12 weeks. When she first came in, only about 3 states extended it to about 12 weeks for women. Now that is 46 states across the country. If you are a woman, you give birth to a baby, you are a Medicaid recipient, you now have 12 weeks of additional maternal care thanks to the vice president of the United States working single-handedly.
And let me just double click on how big of a deal that is, right? One of the things that you start off in your piece talking about is really just the role of the vice president. And in your piece, which is entitled "The Untold Story of Kamala Harris," is about defining her historic role. You can find it on foxnews.com. You say, as stated in the Constitution, the vice president oversees the Senate and assumes the duties of the president in his absence. These two seemingly vague and opaque roles in the Constitution leave each modern American president to determine how they want their vice president to serve in their administration. And so cut to what you just said in terms of how she has wielded her power, her influence related to the maternal health care crisis in this country, an issue that she worked on while she was in the U.S. Senate. In addition to everything else that's in her portfolio, to use her power to persuade 46 states, really 43 states, because there were 3 states to start, to extend postpartum coverage, right? This is something that will make a material difference in the lives of
real people
moms across the country. And we know that especially Black moms.
We're talking about red states and blue states alike that have made this choice. And I think it's really important also to point out here that, the modern vice presidency has really been defined by the person who sits in the Oval Office, or the president. And in a way, I mean, one could argue, and I'm not arguing this, but one could argue that where this White House has really struggled is that they've left Vice President Harris some of parts of her role really undefined, and I think she's in a way been underutilized, right? I mean, you know, she is a longtime prosecutor in San Francisco. She's the former Attorney General in the state of California. In year 2 of the Biden administration, all across the United States post the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is not in my piece because there's just not enough time to talk about it, we saw a spike in crime. We saw a spike in violent crime. This is a woman who wrote a book called Smart on Crime, right? And she has a record of how to be really smart on crime, how to use various tools and tactics that exist in prosecutorial offices across the country to decrease the crime rate. And the fact, I mean, to me, it's very questionable that you didn't see this White House lean in to a former prosecutor who has evidence and who has a track record, who has resume points on decreasing crime as somebody to point to say, maybe we should have you lead our effort on crime. To me, just seemed to be a missed moment. But beyond all of that, what you actually see is a vice president really sort of shaping her own role in a world in which I would argue the White House hasn't been doing the best job of defining how they want her to be part of their administration.
Well, look, I think in spite of that, I think there are a number of very prominent Democrats, and I think there are folks on the VP's team who are doing work that's breaking through. I think these town halls that she's been doing across the country, talking about issues related to gun violence prevention, talking about issues related to women's reproductive rights, talking about economic opportunity. I think folks who get in orbit of those events are seeing that, wait a minute, this vice president is communicating quite clearly. This vice president is pretty dialed into the community. This vice president knows what she's doing, knows what she's talking about. And maybe that would explain some of these recent poll numbers. The Hill is reporting that an overwhelming majority of Democrats say that they approve of Vice President Harris replacing President Biden to top the ticket if he decides to step aside. It's according to a poll released just today. I'm talking about the Economist YouGov survey that found that 79% of Democrats would support Harris as the party's nominee in November if Biden chose to withdraw from the race. This is a growing number of Democrats are obviously calling for President Biden to step aside. But most Democrats, at least according to this poll, are not looking past Vice President Harris. When we come forward, I want to get Richard Fowler's reaction to that and more of some of today's biggest headlines. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. A Black man, Eric Garner, is being remembered on the 10-year anniversary of his chokehold death at the hands of an NYPD cop. Garner's mother, Gwen Carr, led a march on Wednesday in Staten Island in honor of her son. She was joined by Garner's daughter and cousin in marching to the site where her son was killed as police were trying to arrest him for selling loose cigarettes. Former officer Daniel Pantaleo was fired but did not face charges after authorities say he used a banned chokehold on Garner. A nun who ran a blacks-only school in St. Johns County, Florida, is being remembered for her love for the school. Sister Josephine Marie Melican died Tuesday at the age of 88. She was the last principal of St. Benedict the Moore School in St. Augustine when it closed in 1964. The school taught Black students in the era of segregation, and Melican even got to meet Dr. Martin Luther King there once. The school is now being renovated into a community center. That's the latest. I'm Amber Payton on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Looking for a better way to get around LA? SoCal 511 gives you real-time traffic alerts to help you find faster ways around LA County. It's free and helps motorists easily find fast track and roadside assistance services. Visit SoCal511.com or dial 511 on your phone.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
What was your favorite Russell Westbrook moment with the Clippers? Think fast because he's out the door. The Clippers are trading the 17-year veteran as part of a sign and trade deal with the Utah Jazz and Denver Nuggets. Westbrook is going to Utah, where the plan is for him to agree to a contract buyout, which makes him a free agent. Part 2 of the plan is for Westbrook to sign with Denver after he clears waivers. After playing 2 seasons with the Lakers and Clippers, it looks like Westbrook will not have the opportunity to end his NBA career in his hometown, LA. Last season, Westbrook appeared in 68 games with the Clippers, averaging 11.1 points and 4.5 assists. With the departures of Paul George and now Westbrook, it's obvious the Clippers are rebuilding for the future and restructuring their roster. Whenever Westbrook decides to shut it down, he will certainly be a first-time ballot Hall of Famer. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate justice, climate resilience. By any other name, we demand environmental justice in 2024 and beyond. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we don't black down. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Ray Richardson, your sports connection here at KBLA Talk 1580. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough every Saturday night at 7 for Out of Bounds, the show that brings some flavor to the world of sports for 60 minutes. We take you beyond the scores and press conferences. We give you our point of view, the way Black folks see what's going down. You can join the conversation and give us your analysis at 1-800-920-1580. Out of Bounds every Saturday night at 7 on KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Like the style, bro.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number and put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
We're not for everybody, but we're for everybody. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey in conversation with my friend and brother, Richard A. Fowler, Fox News contributor, also contributing writer to Forbes, contributing writer to BET.com. There's nothing that Richard Fowler cannot do. So before the break, Richard, I was sharing with you the recent Economist YouGov poll that showed that nearly 80% of Democrats polled are with Harris if Biden steps off the ticket. Does that feel about right to you?
I mean, look, I think it's very hard to, in this moment, to evaluate polling as a end all beat all. And the reason why I say that is because for most voters who aren't as we do this for a living. So my job is supposed to know the ups and downs of this presidential race. But for most voters in the past 35 days, right, they're probably experiencing a little bit of what I would call, only thing you could call this is whiplash, right? You saw a presidential debate performance that was by current President Joe Biden that was troubling to most Democrats. Following that, which led to, for the first time in American history, a modern history, post open brokered conventions or open conventions, we saw a party saying that we should dismiss the sitting president and the presumptive nominee. A couple of weeks after that, you saw a potential assassination attempt. And before both of those things happened, you saw the former president get convicted of a felony for 36 counts. We're not even talking about the fact that as he prepares to give his convention acceptance speech tonight, former President Donald Trump, less than a month ago, was convicted of 36 felonies in the state of New York. That's not even the front page of the newspaper today. And while that's all happening, we find out yesterday that the sitting president of the United States has contracted COVID-19. So there's so much news in the environment, so much news. Like, I would argue that if this was an expressway, this expressway you would call it flooding. This expressway is not flooded with information. And so it's hard to know how voters are processing all of this and how they're making determinations on what they do or what they don't believe. With that being said, I think the logistics of running a presidential campaign with less than 100 and some odd days to go, it only points to if President Joe Biden decides he's leaving the race, and I think he's the only person that can make that decision in this moment, it only leads to one obvious choice to replace him at the top of the ticket logistically, and that is sitting Vice President Kamala Harris. Number one, Kamala Harris, according to the now there's been some kerfuffle of whether or not this rule applies. It will likely end up in litigation. Republicans will likely sue around this, but per FEC rules, the only person that's sort of entitled to much of the money raised by the Biden-Harris ticket is Kamala Harris. And that is more than just the money that I want folks to realize. It's also all those local campaign field offices, which are leases that's owned by a campaign. It's all the local organizers knocking on doors who are being paid for by the campaign. It's data that the campaign probably, they paid a pollster for data and data analytics and voter information. All those details and all those things necessary to run a modern day presidential campaign belong to the Biden-Harris campaign in this moment. So even if you had the best dream, like even if we're like, all right, we're gonna give the American people Wes Moore and Gretchen Whitmer, current governor of Maryland and current governor of Wisconsin, of Michigan, respectively, right? They don't have that information, right? They would have to go raise money, and the best that the Biden-Harris team could do is they could either form a PAC and give the maximum donation, which is a little bit over $2,000.
Yeah.
Or they could create a super PAC where there's no coordination between the presidential campaign and the Biden super PAC. Or they could donate all the money to the party, but then the party would have to create a new apparatus.
So we really appreciate you going through the mechanics of why logistically it wouldn't make sense to have anybody else at the top of the ticket at this point in the game than Vice President Harris. Your point is taken, but we know that the latest national NPR PBS NewsHour Marist poll release showed that found that Biden and Trump remain statistically tied, even in the aftermath of that widely disappointing debate. Biden leads Trump 50-48 in the head-to-head matchup, but those numbers are not statistically significant due to the survey's margin of error. We know that Vice President Harris is also very competitive, and that's part of the reason why at the RNC convention we're seeing a lot more talk about VP Harris from folks who hit the stage. We know tonight that former President Trump will be accepting the nomination. He's hitting the stage. What does he have to say, and to whom, in order to keep this, what some might call an illusion of unity going, or what others might say, pure momentum working in his favor? What does he have to say? What does he have to do tonight on the stage in order to continue to build on his advantage?
Look, I think that the people watching, the people who are in this convention hall and the people who are pro-Trump supporters, they had no problem with the president's rhetoric, but prior to moving into this debate. And let me just put that out there. I think it's important to say that. They liked his tough talk. They liked his, I'll use air quotes here, his machismo. They liked it. That's why he was a nominee. That's why he beat out 20 some odd other people. I think the fact that the former president picked J.D. Vance, the junior senator from Ohio, as his running mate, somebody who also has subscribed to the MAGA movement as his running mate, it makes it very clear that what Republicans and what former President Trump is doing is they're going to run a base election strategy. We are going, to win this election, we need our base intensity to be a 9 with a pick like J.D. Vance and a convention that has basically had chance with send them home, right? When it comes to the administration's policies around undocumented folks in the country, they're going to gin up their base and they're going to get the base out, and we win the election. And the reason why that works in this moment is because of the conversation that we were just having 3 minutes ago. On the other side, you have a president who, while it seems very clear that at this point in time, the Congressional Black Caucus are in lockstep with him and the Congressional Hispanic Caucus is in lockstep with him, there is fractures. There are clear fractures in the Democratic base in this moment. And you don't have to be Stevie Wonder to see it, right? It's out there. You have people, you have the new senator of California, the likely new senator of California, Adam Schiff, saying, I need you to drop out the race. As we're talking, we just got word that Jamie Raskin, the congressman from Maryland, has joined the call for the president to drop out the race. Are there Black candidates or Latino candidates saying that he should, or members saying he should drop out? No. But to win this campaign, you still
on the record, but off the record.
Yeah, but there's a lot of off the record palace intrigue, right? That's happening. So you have a base that's not united. And how you win presidential elections is with your base united and tapping the gas at full throttle. Republicans are doing that. For the past 3 days, we've seen, whether you like them or not, or whether you agree with their opinions or not, we've seen a flawless Republican convention. Flawless.
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy to be flawless when it's really a coronation of your king.
Either way, flawless. 2016, they did not have a flawless convention. There were floor fights. People throwing their credentials on the ground. People not wanting Donald Trump to be the nominee. Nikki Haley, his top. I mean, and I tell you, listen, I said this and I'll say it again. Donald Trump is a weak candidate. He was a weak candidate going into this convention. Right, while he was up leading Joe Biden in the polls at 1 or 2 points, he had a problem. About 20% of the Republican Party, who even after Nikki Haley had dropped out the race, was still voting for her. Nikki Haley comes out and tells you, I'm giving my full-throated endorsement to Donald Trump. I'm not sure if the Democratic convention were to be happening today, you would see the same thing. And therein lies the problem. Republicans are running a base-based strategy. The Republican base intensity probably was 9 or maybe 9.5 before this convention. When this convention closes tonight, when those balloons drop, their intensity will be at 12 or 13, and the Democratic intensity will probably be at 6 or 7.
We're going to have to leave it there. There's so much more that we could talk about and should talk about. We'll have you back soon to make sense out of J.D. Vance. We'll see how he does his sort of first full week on the campaign trail after the convention. My thanks to Richard A. Fowler for joining us here. You're always welcome here. And so are all of you listeners and viewers. When we come forward, it's time for the quiet part out loud. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh man, looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys. Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is
Grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
My friends swim no matter the season, but my moderate to severe plaque psoriasis can sometimes take me out of the moment. Now, thanks to Skyrizi and clear skin, count me in. With Skyrizi, Risankizumab Riza, a prescription-only 150 milligram injection for adults who are candidates for systemic or phototherapy. 3 out of 4 people achieve 90% clear skin at 4 months.
Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions and an increased risk of infections or a lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check for infection and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms such as fever, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, or if you plan to or recently received a vaccine.
Thanks to Skyrizi, there's nothing on my skin, and that means everything. Ask your doctor today about Skyrizi, the #1 dermatologist-prescribed biologic in psoriasis, and visit skyrizi.com or call 1-866-SKYRIZI to learn more.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where everybody is somebody and nobody is a stranger. You belong here.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. A reminder that we are your one-stop shop for all your national political news, all the headlines that you need to know with the expert analysis. From the White House to your house, we got you covered. And it's about time for the quiet part out loud. Now, if you have been geeking out watching the RNC convention, no matter what your party affiliation is, this is a part of our democratic process. You know, all the major parties do their conventions, and we have a chance to watch and critique and get a sense of what they're about. And so that said, we know there's been a lot of tough talk about immigration and strengthening the border and doing more. But one thing we haven't heard about is how a housing provider for unaccompanied migrant children engaged in sexual abuse and harassment. This is according to the Department of Justice. That's right. Employees of the largest housing provider for unaccompanied migrant children in the United States have repeatedly sexually abused and harassed children in their care over the past 8 years. According to the Justice Department, this is a story that was released during this hour by the Associated Press. They said that the Southwest key employees, including supervisors, have raped, touched, or solicited sex and nude images of children since at least 2015. That's what the Department of Justice is alleging. In a lawsuit filed just yesterday, at least 2 employees have been charged since 2020, according to the lawsuit. Based in Austin, Southwest Key is the largest provider of housing for unaccompanied migrant children, operating under grants from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It has 29 child migrant shelters, 17 in Texas, 10 in Arizona, and 2 in California, with room for a little over 6,300 children. The company's largest shelter is in Brownsville and has a capacity of 1,200. Now, the lawsuit, which provided details of some of the alleged abuse, asserts that authorities received more than 100 reports of sexual abuse or harassment at the provider shelter since 2015. More than 100 reports. And among the suit's allegations, an employee repeatedly sexually abused 3 girls ages 5, 8, and 11 at the Casa Franklin shelter in El Paso, Texas. The 8-year-old told investigators, that the worker repeatedly entered their bedrooms in the middle of the night to touch their private area, and he threatened to kill their families if they disclosed the abuse. The suit also alleges that an employee of the provider's shelter in Tucson, Arizona, took an 11-year-old boy to a hotel and paid him to perform sexual acts for several days in 2020. So while members of the GOP commit to grandstanding around making America safer, around being tougher, around border issues, tougher on immigration, why not get tougher on these housing providers for these unaccompanied migrant children? You know, the same migrant children that under the Trump administration, they separated these migrant children from their parents who are typically your protectors. Where's the responsibility for that? Where's the accountability for that? Where's the justice for these migrant children? While they may not be American, they are human beings and are entitled to their human rights. That's the quiet part out loud. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More will come forward.
The quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
So the thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it's uncomfortable to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. And only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for up to 8 hours for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price, however, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer, excludes 8-count packs.
Can't believe tax season is here already. Look at all this info I have to enter.
Phil's small accounting firm is growing in numbers.
Why didn't I take that typing class in high school?
A data entry specialist could really help him in a crunch.
I got blisters on my fingers.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
What? Yeah. The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment. LA's 99 neighborhood councils form the grassroots level of the Los Angeles city government. The system was created to connect LA's diverse communities to City Hall. While neighborhood council board members are volunteers, they are also public officials elected to office by the members of their community. Neighborhood councils advocate on issues like homelessness, housing, land use, emergency preparedness, public safety, parks, transportation, and sustainability. They also provide local expertise on the delivery of city services to their various communities. Neighborhood councils are open to participation by anyone who is a part of the fabric of daily life in said community. This includes those who live, work, or own property or a business. If you are interested in stepping up to join your local neighborhood council, visit www.empowerla.org. That's empowerla.org. It's time to think globally, but act locally. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California and around the country to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. As part of JP Morgan Chase commitment, they are taking action to help improve financial wealth and access to banking in the Black community, helping more people open low-cost checking and savings accounts, hosting community seminars with supporting Black-led institutions by building awareness about financial investments, hiring community managers, and opening community center branches like Crenshaw, Inglewood, and downtown LA. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Get the tools to help reach your financial goals. Visit today, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity. Again, jpmorganchase.com/racial equity.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio, KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. A little breaking news coming in, reported by the LA Times while we've been on air. Veteran TV news host and conservative commentator Lou Dobbs has died at the age of 78. Dobbs' death was confirmed today with a post on the Truth social media account. Former President Trump posted saying, quotes, "Lou was a fighter till the very end, fighting for what mattered to him the most, God, his family, and the country. Lou's legacy will forever live on as a patriot and a great American. We ask for your prayers for Lou's wonderful wife, Deb, children, and grandchildren." For those of you who may not be as familiar, we know that Dobbs became a household name when he appeared on CNN when it launched in 1980. He abruptly quit on air in 2009 and became a mainstay on Fox Business News. In 2021, Fox News Media canceled his long-running Fox Business News show, Lou Dobbs Tonight, over his allegations of voter fraud, but the commentator remained under contract for the network. The story is still continuing to develop, but Lou Dobbs has died at the age of 78. Let me finish with this. On a brighter note, Coppola, Raitt, and the Dead make the latest Kennedy Center Honors class. 3 artists, a band, and a building walk into the Kennedy Center. Well, that's probably not how it'll happen, but in an unusual twist, the storied Harlem Theater, the Apollo, New York's gravitational center for Black arts that turned 90 this year, is among the 47th class of Kennedy Center honorees. The president CEO, Michelle Ebanks, said the honor certainly wasn't expected. Artists receive this award, but then the Apollo is an iconic stage for artists. And so congratulations to Michelle Ebanks and the entire team over at the Apollo, everybody that's a part of that storied history at the Apollo, for getting your hard-earned, well-deserved Kennedy Center honors. We can't wait to see it. I have to leave it there. My thanks to the Village that helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer extraordinaire, Miles Lowe, our show producer, Robert Battles, and podcast publishing guru, Odell Bodie. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. You've been listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA.